the Ottoman defense system was basically portrayed in a strategic mindset over maps. I'd like to thank him very much for this nice presentation. Now, without further say, I'd like to give the floor to the next speaker, Mr. Oguzhan AKYENER. He is going to talk about the climate change effect on defense policies. Thank you very much, Dr. Ansar. I'd like to thank everyone who contributed and participated. I'm learning a lot in this Congress. And today I'm going to talk about climate change a little bit. And then, it is an important matter that is not really receiving a lot of attention, but within ourselves, we can obtain the support of international institutions. Not looking down on us, but we can obtain their support because they care about the climate support a lot. Especially for the ones in Turkey, after the Friday prayer yesterday, that was a prayer for rain, and it was a very nice prayer. But you see that there is a need for rain prayer because we're going through drought. And let me just start with my presentation. My time has started. I think you have it on the screen, right? Yes, we do. Climate change affects international security policies. In this regard, about the climate change, use of hydrocarbon sources is basically brought to the fore, and the carbon dioxide emission in this regard, and the greenhouse effect that it creates, and the melting of the ice caps. Because of all these, it triggers the temperature increase, and in a chain effect, it creates a lot of effects. There has been an increasing temperature in Ankara, for example. We're not really going through a winter now. And each one of us are basically seeing the effects of the climate change. Long-term effects aside, I'd like to say right now is that the use of energy and hydrocarbon sources is very important, and many international institutions, United Nations, EU, and United States, with the financing of these bodies, many policies are being made, many grants are being given to decrease the carbon emission. To decrease the carbon dioxide emission, we need to change the energy trends, and it's not really easy. I'd like to emphasize that in the, what is being imposed on the international system, to decrease, we need to decrease the carbon emission, and we need to reshape our energy usage for that. It's not really being implemented at the full by anyone, but all the issues that are being sanctioned by the international society, it may be okay for the developed countries with strong economy, but they cannot really be implemented globally, especially what is funded by the United Nations. Underdeveloped and poor countries, many African countries, for example, we see similar implementations. Small-scale incentives are not really making a lot of change. So what kind of future projection should we have? Looking into the demographic balances at a global level, the biggest rate of population increase comes from the poor countries, unfortunately, and the intensity of these countries are in the Islamic world. And the increase of population in these poor countries, like about 8 billion, the world population now, it's going to be 11 billion. And the biggest population increase is going to be either poor, coming from either poor or the mid-sized countries. And there is a song in Turkey which says, if anyone is going to burn the whole world, it's going to be the poor. And we are going to see how these imbalances will affect the international system. The issues that we are going through in pandemic, for example, the pandemic basically decreased the carbon emission at the desired level, but it is indexed on the petroleum use. So whatever plan we do, the fire in Australia, it disrupted the whole balance, and this huge fire, it does not reflect on the statistics used by the Western countries. Let's have a future projection here. Between 700 and 1900, there was a coal revolution. The petroleum started its revolution in 1900, and it will move on its effect until 2020. And the natural gas is going to be effective in 2120. And renewable sources are going to be the most important from then on. On the other side, looking at the relevant geographies here, look at the areas that are put in ellipse. These are where the population explosion is going to take place, and therefore they are going to increase economically. And they are connected to the Islamic world. They have energy potential, petroleum potential, and this area has to use coal, petroleum, and natural gas. And whatever inclination they have towards the renewable energy, but the issue, they won't have the capacity to invest in it. So on a monthly basis, for example, there are many people that have $10, millions of them, and when we come to 2050, they will have $100, and they're going to use it on natural gas. And the same goes on for the natural gas potential. Structures like United Nations, if they want an implementable carbon dioxide policy, they have to analyze whether the model that they present is correct, because the sociological distribution, the existing carbon monoxide emission is still being made by the developed countries. So these countries had, industrial leaps forwards, and they had basically toxicated the world in terms of the carbon dioxide that they have emitted. And looking at the Islamic world and African countries, they exploited the sources of African and Islamic countries to the point of enslaving them, and they developed their own technology using this. So now what they're saying is, let's decrease the carbon dioxide emission. Well, it's not really possible. So if they still want a decrease in carbon dioxide emission, they should do much more than the small-scale so-called incentives. Or they should basically give up on their targets. About the global trends, this is our projection for 2100. There's going to be a 191% decrease in the energy demand, but the proportion of the renewable energy is increasing here. But natural gas is becoming the most important energy source. Nuclear is increasing. Coal is decreasing. But about the petroleum and natural gas, we're not really receiving the expected results. And you can see the projections that we made in in European Union and United States, and you see that there's an increase in renewable energy. But you see different balances in China and India. Especially in India, there is a necessary coal consumption because there is no other way to respond to energy thirst of India. You see the general overall situation here for these countries. You know, India and China, you see their weight, their relative weight in the overall consumption. These are going to be the countries that are going to be the thirstiest. And the efficiency of Europe and United States is going to decrease. You see, Turkey is orange here. It's not very visible, but for many Muslim countries are listed in the rest of the world, by the way. When we come to 2100, this is going to be the general equation of energy. The biggest source is going to be natural gas, and it's going to be followed by renewable, and the petroleum is going to be a little more than 21%. The petroleum is not going to be over very quickly, by the way. Looking at the future of the Islamic world, the Islamic world has a young population, and after 2070s, it is going to be the biggest religion in terms of population. And you see the demographic distribution on a religious basis in the lower right map. And you see these are energy hungry areas, and in economic terms, when we come to 2060 and 70, in terms of the GDPs, China is going to be the leading country, and India is going to follow that. And Turkey is going to be 11th country, most likely, and again, Indonesia is going to be number 4. And this is going to promote Islamic world in terms of international balance. So in terms of climate change, there are risk scores. You can see the relevant article if you want. There are different criteria. There are 2 factors. One of them is because of the temperature increase. You see the negative effects A1, A2, and in 2C, from 2A to 2E, they are going to be the negative results because of the rise of water level, degradation of the life quality, food security, and disasters, water shortage, and in hydroelectric systems, well, this is creating further risk in hydroelectric systems as well. Because, higher temperature means more use of AC, and that is more energy consumption. And even the United States is having its own problems about that. And nuclear plants are using a lot of water to cool off the systems, and you're going to have to evaluate the water security for that. Biodiversity is also important here. Forestry is also important, and because of the rise of the water level, the migration, natural disasters, and conflict risks, especially in Arctic zones, well, these are possible risks that we're going to be faced with. So you see 2 graphs in the United Nations. On the right side, you see the risk score of climate change. As you see, there's an intense Muslim population in India. This is why I included it in my list. From India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, these countries are going to be facing the risk brought by climate change. And from your financial operations to military, they are going to be affected by the climate change. And many countries are going to be affected in the Islamic world because of this, especially in countries like India, Japan, Germany, Philippines. They're going to be increased by the temperature rise. And in many other countries, because of the rise of the sea level, they're going to be affected. Here's my last slide. We need projects, declarations, videos, trainings, and projections to raise awareness. You know, we need to set up long-term projects about the climate change for renewable energy, water cleaning, and water consumption. R&D studies could be conducted on that. There could be a climate policy support fund, and we could have water management center, and especially hydrocarbon manufacturing countries could basically provide funds for renewable energy. And you know, once we say that we want to start an integration process in the Islamic world, and we receive a lot of reaction for that, but in this regard, to fight against the climate change, if we say we are starting an integration process to fight the climate change, the United States, Europe, and the other institutions are going to have a more embracing attitude, and we may receive bigger support for that. And this is what we have to put into account. Thank you very much.
Oğuzhan Bey'e biz çok teşekkür ediyoruz. Sunum teknikleri de doğrusu çok ilgi çekiciydi.
Thank you very much. Mr. Akyener, you touched upon the climate change based on the facts and statistics.
Kendisine çok teşekkür ediyoruz.
Would like to thank you a lot. By the way, I couldn't